Hello fellow cyborgs, and welcome to a special TBR video where I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be reading that is Victorian literature in the month of October. Victober this year is hosted by some lovely ladies who love some classic literature. I will link all of their channels down below. Victober is a month-long readathon in essence that asks you to read more or just some Victorian literature in the month of October. There are 5 challenges this year, and I have picked 4 books that I believe meet these challenges. So without further blather, I would love to share what I'm planning on reading in October with you. First, you see Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. This fulfills the challenge of reading a book that was recommended to you. This was recommended to me, not necessarily personally, but by Katie from Books and Things. I watched her 2 weeks of Hardy videos, and this was one of her top picks. I've read Tess of D'Urberville by Thomas Hardy, but I haven't read anything else, and I'm hoping that I will enjoy this more than Tess. I'm planning on reading this with Sarai from Sarai Talks Books. We just finished reading another Victorian classic together, and it was awesome, so I'm really excited to be able to chat with her about this, and I'm hoping that I will enjoy this a lot more as my second Hardy. Next is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I have been waiting for the right moment to read this book for years, ever since I heard people talk about this on BookTube probably a couple years ago when I first was made aware of how awesome it's supposed to be. This fulfills the challenge of reading a book written by a female author, Anne Bronte. Awesome lady. I'm planning on buddy reading this with Acacia Ives, and I'm really excited to read this with her and chat about it with her, because sometimes classics, you really need to dig your teeth into them a little bit, and so having some good buddies to read it with just makes it so much more wonderful. I am excited to compare this to the other Brontes that I've read, and most specifically Jane Eyre, because I know I've watched a video by Katie from Books and Things comparing Jane Eyre and this together a little bit. I've forgotten most of the details that spoil the reading experience, which is awesome, so I'm hoping to come at this with a fairly clean mind, or not clean, my mind isn't unclean, but a blank slate, so to speak, and enjoy this with all of its feminine goodness and all of the other sorts of things that I hope to find in here. Feminine, feminist. Okay, let's move on. Next, I'm planning to read this chunk of a book. This is Daniel Deronda by George Eliot. I'm buddy reading this with Acacia Ives as well, because we like to challenge ourselves. This beast of a book is probably about 700 pages. I've read Middlemarch years ago, and I really remember liking George Eliot's writing style, but not necessarily the plot so much or the characters so much in Middlemarch. Daniel Deronda sounds a lot more interesting. I think this mostly has to do with 2 principal characters and them trying to connect with one another and society kind of getting in the way. There also, I believe, is discussions about Judaism in here, which I don't read a lot about in books, but I'm really interested in, especially a Victorian representation of Judaism. So we'll have to see if I enjoy this more than Middlemarch. On a completely unrelated note, is this like very good condition? Like the fact that this book is like permanently kind of wonkadoodle? Because I feel like Abe Books, I love Abe Books, but sometimes the sellers just get away with nonsense. Anyway, so this fulfills the challenge also of reading a book that is written by a female author, because George Eliot is a pseudonym for an awesome lady. And I guess this is technically too a recommendation, because my Victorian novels professor said that I should read Daniel Deronda. No, she said I should read Middlemarch. Whatever. I'm gonna read it. It's Victorian, so I'm gonna give it a try. And my final pick manages to, I believe, fulfill 3 of the 5 challenges that I haven't mentioned yet. This is In a Glass Darkly by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. J. Sheridan Le Fanu. There's no J there. That's weird. Okay, that's fine. Le Fanu is an Irish author, I think. Oh, I'm awful. Was he Irish? I think he's Irish. Confirmed, he's Irish. Le Fanu is Irish, which is one of the challenges to read a Victorian novel written by an Irish, Welsh, or Scottish person. In a Glass Darkly is a collection of, I think it's 4 different like gothic supernatural stories, in which is Carmilla, the quite famous vampire novel that preceded Bram Stoker and isn't full of as much misogyny, which I'm all pro for. So that fulfills the read a Victorian novel with supernatural elements. And on Goodreads, if I remember correctly, I think this had less than 5,000 ratings, and it might be cheating because this is In a Glass Darkly and not just Carmilla, but I'm counting it as an underrated Victorian novel as well. I'm also super excited that it's relatively small. I think it's less than 300 pages because I have Daniel Deronda to read, and that's going to take some time. So anyway, this is the final Victorian novel / short stories that I plan on reading in the month. So here is my lovely TBR. 4 books, not super ambitious, but my reading has not been super awesome as far as numbers lately, though it's been improving, and I'm really hope that I find some 5-star reads in here. I've been having such luck with Victorian literature lately, and I am just really glad to have the opportunity to binge on some in the month of October. So those are my main reading plans for October, as well as for the celebration of Victorian literature. Please let me know in the comments down below if you will be participating. If you have a video or a blog post talking about your TBR, please link it to me. And if not, I would love for you to just tell me what Victorian literature you plan on reading just in the comment sections. Old school typey. If you are not going to be doing all of the challenges, or if you don't manage to think you're going to find time, I would love to know which Victorian novel you would pick up if you had the opportunity. Thank you for watching, and until next time, continue to be lovely.